Welcome to another special discussion. This is Dr. Tangella Shiva Prasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR. Namaskaram, Adab and Hello. The second lockdown ends on May 3rd. So during this lockdown, could we really arrest or cut down the transmission of COVID-19 or Corona? And what from May 3rd onwards? How to go about it? This is the discussion which we are going to take up today. We have as usually esteemed guest in Sagar Dhara. He is ex-consultant United Nations Environment Program and also a risk analyst. From Chennai, we are being joined by Sridhar, and from Kerala, Malabar region by Professor Shabarinath. Welcome to you all to this special discussion. Mr. Sridhar, Professor Shabarinath, is it clear?
Thank you, Shiva. Sridhar here to make it clear.
Yeah, Professor Shabarinath, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So, this is a specific discussion about as to how we are going to move ahead after May 3rd. And what is that happened during the first lockdown? Could we catch up what we lost in the first lockup in the second lockdown period? Were the tests adequate to identify the positives, trace the contacts, quarantine and treat them? And how it is going to have an impact, because sitting at home ideally is not helping anyone. People are estranged, they are becoming mentally sick. Children are the worst sufferers. Their physical activity has been totally cut down. Likewise, the adults who prefer to go out on walks, whether it is for in the diabetes interest or otherwise, everything is on hold. This also because January ending 30th, 31st, when World Health Organization, along in consonance with China, we have been repeating and we have been bringing it out as to how China did not make Wuhan, it was just an endemic, very clear to the world. It allowed the spread, and likewise WHO failed in every step. When Taiwan very clearly, categorically stated to WHO that this is human to human transmission, in spite of the evidences, WHO did not heed. And the best part is, in the middle of January, they were praising China's efforts, but when China went for Wuhan lockdown on January 23rd, WHO was very surprised and shocked, like the entire world. By that time, the spread was universal. But since then, because India still states that we are following WHO protocols, to remind viewers and good friends, January 31st, when they said it is World Health Emergency, it is still mind-boggling as to why India could not go ahead by banning all international flights into India, as was done by United States of America. Believe me, Trump visited India in the February last week. This has to be kept in mind. Before he visited, he has stopped all the flights from China as well as European Union, where he thought from this virus spread. Why India could not do it? I'm just trying to speak about the preparedness, as has been discussing in every discussion. The preparedness, even in spite of WHO claiming it to be a World Health Emergency, why Indians could not move ahead. March 11th, World Health Organization declares it as a pandemic. Subsequently, March 12th, I think Love Agarwal was on record stating that it's a clear local infection, followed by our Honorable Prime Minister's word on March 19th stating that everything is under control. All of a sudden, we find Janata Curfew on March 22nd, followed by the first lockdown, and again on April 13th, the second lockdown. So this is the history, and to understand that we could not move ahead, or even still now as on date we are not moving ahead with that preparedness, with a well-planned strategy to mitigate the suffering, because people are at risk. and people have every right to be well informed. Otherwise, if people don't cooperate, we have witnessed what has happened in Europe, Italy, and to an extent in America. Lockdown with mitigation measures is the only way to overcome this. And we have seen many others discussing that herd immunity has not been proved. It really beats my intelligence. Without herd immunity, how can one expect immunization or vaccination? It is surprising and sorry state of affairs. So we are going to discuss all this in our special discussion. To start with, Mr. Sridhar and Professor Shabarinath, kindly hear to our guest here in studio for a while, then I will come back to you. Is it okay?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So go ahead. As to what is happening now.
Okay.
Are we flattening the curve as has been claimed by COVID Chairman Mishra? Bhargava was there and they were giving out figures after figures stating that everything is under control, we are flattening the curve. If we are flattening the curve, why this discussion through their regularly sponsored channels that again another lockdown is imminent? It is surprising and startling.
We are far from flattening the curve. Now, if you compare the cases which are visible here in front of me, in several countries, the way that India's growth of cases is happening today is very similar to that in the United States. And very dissimilar to what has happened in China or Italy or Spain, where the case growth rate has declined.
Okay.
Whereas our case growth rate has not declined. If you look at the last week or 10 days case growth rate, every day we've had something like about 1500, 1700, sometimes even 2000 cases.
Today
new
it is 1990.
Yes.
Close to 2000 cases.
New cases every day.
24 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question that arises is why does this happen? Now if you look at case growth rate, very simple. Now India's case growth rate during the lockdown period is 13.6% per day.
Okay.
And if you look at many of the lockdown countries, like United Kingdom, France, Italy, Spain, in fact even their case growth rate per day is in double digits, somewhere between about 12 to 17% or thereabouts.
Okay.
Okay. Compare this with the case growth rate for periods where mitigation action has been taken in countries, particularly in Southeast Asia, like South Korea or Taiwan or Hong Kong or Singapore, or for that matter of fact, even Vietnam. Okay. Now their case growth rates are roughly between about 4 to 8% per day.
Okay.
And they have not locked down.
Right. They're not locked down.
They haven't
It's
locked
only
down.
mitigation efforts.
Only mitigation.
Right.
Right? Now, why is there this difference? Number one is the very aggressive testing that was done in these countries.
Okay.
Now, it's very interesting to note that Kerala did the same. In fact, and Kerala's case growth rate during the same period for which I have computed for India, India is 13.6, Kerala is 4.8%.
Mind-boggling.
You know, less than half of what India is.
Right.
Why did this happen? So the first thing is, you have to catch the thief.
Right.
He's outside. The faster you are able to catch the thief, that is the coronavirus, you put him away
Right.
so that he does not do any further damage.
Right.
Now how do you do that? The first thing is obviously by testing,
Right.
right? So if you start early and keep on testing aggressively, that is when you are able to find cases and you isolate these cases, remove them from the general population and treat them.
Right.
And you quarantine those cases where you suspect that they may have been in contact and remove them so that they can't infect anybody else. This is what these countries, so the first thing is the importance of testing, which somehow has been missed by our government. So the whole of February they literally did nothing because they knew about Wuhan as early as January. In fact, in second week of January, because the health minister of Kerala is on record saying that they prepared from January because they knew there were Kerala students in Wuhan and they'd get the coronavirus back into Kerala.
Right.
And they started preparing from January itself, and the rest of the country went to sleep.
Wonderful.
So you have one state which prepared early, and the case growth rate is just 4.8%. The rest of the country it's 13.6%. I mean, as a whole, that is okay. So the first thing is testing. We didn't do that, and we started testing very late. Now, if you look at the testing figures today, as on date, we have done approximately 400 tests per million population. Now compare that with South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore and all these countries. They're somewhere in the region of between 12,000 to 17,000
Per million.
tests per million.
Okay.
So we've done 30 to 50 times less testing than they have done.
Okay.
So what did they do? They went out and got the cases. They got the coronavirus cases. We didn't do it, and which is why our growth rate is where it is at this point of time. Okay. So this is the second point. Now, we've been using the excuse that the whole outbreak has not gone into a stage 3, which is into community transmission. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how do you explain that the case growth rate is 13.7 or 8%? If it has not gone into community transmission, particularly under lockdown conditions?
That's what. No, I'm rising the cases every day now.
Yeah. Now, if you look at the data that's coming from government or people close to government, the studies that have been done. Now, here is a study that's been done by people from ICMR itself. Many of the authors are from ICMR, and they say that they have in a sentinel surveillance that was done on 5,000, nearly 6,000 SARI patients. Okay, they say that they've got a 1.8% incidence of coronavirus.
That's community transmission. They themselves have admitted it.
So where they haven't explained, where this came from. So the question is, okay, we've had a 4-week lockdown period. We have to explain where did this 13.6% growth rate per day has happened. Clearly, this figure indicates that it's gone into community transmission, not recently, but quite some time back.
Okay.
And that probably a lot of this transmission is happening, much more than what was probably earlier thought of within the family itself.
Okay.
And this is the indication that we've got even from Wuhan. That a lot of the transmission that happened there happened within the family, even under lockdown conditions. And this is even written in a WHO report on Wuhan, in fact. Okay. So this is where we have. What it basically indicates is that probably other non-pharmaceutical interventions like physical distancing, wherever it is possible, which has not been given the importance that it should have been, actually deserves more importance than it has been given. Okay. Now, the other kind of initial information that has been coming out is studies that have been done in different parts of the world, and basically the study that's been initiated in Germany in a place called Heinsberg seems to indicate 2 or 3 things. One is that a lot of transmission happens when we have a Anand Vihar bus stand kind of a gathering of more than 10,000 people. That's what happened in Heinsberg. That is, a lot of people got together in a carnival, and the transmission started happening from there. For example, in Italy, a lot of the transmission started happening in football games when a lot of people got together.
Okay.
Or
a huge gathering.
Yes, that's what happened in Bergamo.
Right.
Or, for that matter of fact, what happened in Austria was a lot of the transmission happened at a ski resort.
Okay.
Right? So what it means basically is that the question that it raises is transmission. Is transmission, for example, if you visit your local store or your barber shop, does a lot of transmission happen there either on a human to human basis or by contacting surfaces?
Right.
And the answer seems to be more iffy than what it was before. Some of the information coming out from Germany is that the transmission through contact is not that high.
So you want to say these fomites and all these things which has been in the news, so it is not through such type of contact?
No, I'm not saying it's not.
It may be.
What I'm saying is that the importance given to it is now being questioned. So what I'm basically suggesting is that in India we've not had a discussion on what transmission dynamics in India is. That is
Even
what
till
is,
today, even in
even
spite
till
of we are being in second lockdown,
yes.
how this is spreading?
How is it?
How?
Is it spreading?
Why 2,000 cases in a day?
Yes.
How?
Is it spreading in gatherings? Is it spreading to a larger extent within the family? Is it spreading by touching
Everything is
surfaces?
locked down.
Yeah.
They have converted health issue to a law and order issue.
Yeah.
In spite of people being well informed of their health,
That's,
they are being bulldozed.
so we need to understand what is transmission dynamics, and government needs to tell us what its understanding of transmission dynamics are. It's a very important topic, because your strategy will depend on your understanding of transmission dynamics.
How it is spreading?
How it is spreading.
It's a simple thing.
Yes.
Let me. Professor Shoberinath. Hello. 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 Yeah, Mr. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope you have gone through the first initial.
I did go through the comments of the first speaker, and I happily to be honest to start off with, and I do agree with quite a lot of the points that the first language mentioned. On a Kerala perspective, it is very true that the current latest
Yeah, go ahead. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Professor Shoberinath.
I'm speaking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's clear. It's clear. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just saying that I do agree with the first analyst that the growth rate here in Kerala has come down drastically compared to the national average.
Right.
And it is also true that we were prepared on a much earlier date compared to the entire country.
Right.
I would also like to state that people Kerala state have this one little prior experience of a viral transmission. Close to approximately the same time last year, the Nipah virus, if I remember properly.
Yes, it was Nipah.
So the rate of transmission of a viral disease, which we generally classify as R0,
Right.
R0 generally has between 2 or 3 is a serious issue.
Yeah.
And that kind of viral transmissions, a little bit of exposure, close to 13 cases, 25 cases, we do have a little bit of experience in that aspect as well.
Yeah.
So that also did help to a great extent.
So you agree that the transmission dynamics that will play an important role in strategizing.
Exactly, that is the point here.
So
because it is the transmission health that has to be given much more of importance, and that is only how we can flatten the curve. And even next when we're speaking about flattening the curve, we're just saying that we are trying to reduce the peak of infected patients coming into the medical fraternity at once. Okay, we're not saying that we're going to eradicate the pandemic. That is something that we do have to understand. The virus is going to stay for quite some time until a vaccine is created or until there is herd immunity in place.
Yeah, that's well.
We do have to decide very well, because I'm not really sure if the community has understood this fact. Flattening the curve is not eradicating the cause.
Yeah, you are just trying to reduce the spread, and time. You are buying time.
Exactly, that is what we have.
But here another interesting aspect is the spread is imported. The virus is imported. So we have basically cut down all the international flights, subsequently domestic flights, and even the local movement is also more or less on stop. When such is the case, as to why we are still unable to understand the transmission dynamics till today, we are still into the second lockdown, as to why the cases have been on the rise, from where and how. At least now Kerala, now you could identify. You say this spread is, these cases are because of this. But the same is now not happening across India. I'll come back to you. Just hold the line, Mr. Shoberinath. Sridhar.
Sure, Dr. Shiva.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are very clear.
Yes, I'm in perfect agreement that the transmission dynamics is still not understood.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that I would also agree upon. Second is I feel that the testing procedures are still not being understood by many people. I can tell you of a personal incident itself where a person known to me has the virus and that person has been tested negative once and for positive 5 times. Then after that again it was tested negative and then again positive 3 times. So nobody, even the doctor, is not able to understand what exactly is happening. And the person spoke to the doctor. Doctor says, even I'm not sure. There's a new virus. We are not sure of what's happening. But the only thing that is needed for a discharge is 2 negatives is needed. And until that happens, we cannot discharge the concerned person.
So this reporting is from Chennai, I mean to say. Is it right?
Sorry.
Is this from Chennai?
Yeah, no, we put it that way.
Okay, right.
So, the thing is that the testing procedures or whatever is it, whether the test kits are not proper, being imported from China or whatever is not proper. Many of those test kits have been not being used, at least by some governments as such. And I'm not sure we are still ordering from China even now. So that is a big question mark in the first place. So is our testing that very adequate is the first thing. The number of million cases that was mentioned earlier is very less compared to the US or any other country like any other European country. That is less. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Second is, are we testing properly? Is that the other question that is being? That's something that I can ask, and if anybody in the group can give me an answer, that would be great.
Definitely.
Are we doing a proper testing?
Definitely. We have got an experienced even consultant, and he's a risk analyst. He will explain it for you next.
So,
Yes.
as I told you, the person whom I know itself, this is what is happening.
Yeah.
Once tested negative, 5 times positive after that.
Yeah.
Then again tested negative and 2 times positive after that.
Right.
So, they are not sure, the doctor is not sure as to why it's happening.
So whether it is the fault of the testing kits or the virus itself because of improper treatment or whatever it is, so let us not fix it now.
Right, there's no treatment for this because all they can do is give you an antibiotics, or even that will not work. So it's only a bacterial infection which will probably be cured by
So he has followed all those measures, quarantine measures, everything as has been advised.
So, there is one thing which is sort of still there. The transient dynamics, as you said, this might be spreading to a stage 3, which people are still not sure. But again, we as a country are still maintaining that it's still in stage 2. So again, it is for the analysts to come back to us and tell us whether it has actually got to a stage 3 transmission.
Yeah, just can you hold the line?
Sure.
Yeah.
I am pretty certain that it is in stage 3 and that it has been there for quite some time. I feel that, for example, that the sampling that has been done is all wrong. See, when you want to catch something, you have to, if the percentage of cases is small, then you have to increase your sample size enormously. And this is something that any first year BSc student who does statistics knows. So I don't have to tell ICMR these things. These are very well known fundamentals.
Right.
That if the number of cases is, for example, 50% or something, then your sample can come down drastically. But if your number of cases is something like 0.1% or 0.01%, then obviously it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. So you'll have to increase your sample size enormously, which is not what we've done. The second thing is you've got to look at the right place, and that's exactly what we're not doing, So I have a simple, edict for this. It's basically lack of evidence is not evidence of absence. What it means is that if I go around collecting data and I don't find a case, it doesn't mean that there are no cases. It's just that I have not looked sufficiently for it.
Like a needle in a haystack.
It's like a needle in a haystack.
If I can insert, would Dharavi be a good example of that, sir?
Yeah, go ahead, Sridhar, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to ask, sir. If Dharavi in Mumbai, would it be a good example of not, not testing done sufficiently, or we have not looked properly in those places? Because Dharavi is one of the biggest slums in Asia.
Yes. I used to live pretty close by, in fact, to Dharavi for many years. A little beyond Sion.
That is what he was trying to mention you. Even the migrants issue in Delhi, these are all igniting factors. That was
in fact, the people getting together in Anand Vihar bus stand in Delhi, where tens of thousands got together, was a place where a huge amount of transmission would have happened. Likewise in Bandra on the 14th of March, or in Surat 2 days before that. And all we do is, we try to, not we, but some people try to trump up this Tablighi gathering, which was, as my understanding goes, only a couple of thousand people.
But Chennai is badly affected because of Tablighi.
So the point is that the people in Anand Vihar, the migrants who got together, which the government didn't foresee at all, which had there been a risk analyst in Delhi advising the government, he would have used a what if technique, which all risk analysts are familiar with, and said, okay, if you do this, what else can go wrong? And this is how you do things, right? They advised government saying that, this is what can go wrong elsewhere. So we'll have to take care of that. But there's a far more important issue, that we searched the net quite a bit to find out if there was an emergency response plan for a viral epidemic, and we didn't find one. The only thing that we found, in fact, was a contingency plan which is dated 2nd of April or 3rd of April, and that stops at local transmission. It doesn't talk about the community transmission, what to do in a community transmission or in an epidemic. So what to me seems very evident, because I've looked at a lot of disasters that have happened in the past, is that we went into this whole thing completely unprepared. We didn't have a response plan, unless government has stamped it as top secret and hidden it away in some sort of strongbox. We didn't have a plan. We didn't know what to do when this thing hit us. And when it hit us, we said, okay, it's not really going to hit us, it's in China. And for more than 6 weeks, we just kept quiet and went to sleep. And then suddenly woke up and started realizing, my God, we're going to be in really bad shape, because our healthcare delivery system is weak. And if this thing, we have a very highly densely populated country. If this thing hits us, it's like the shit hitting the fan, and so on. And that is why, literally in panic, what the government did was declared a lockdown to give it time to figure out what to do next. Well, I hope they come out with something good. It's all right. In war, a lot of people panic. But I do hope that they come out with something good, and I hope that they take people with them. Because unless they take people with them, like what the Kerala government did, they're not going to succeed as well as they otherwise would if they formed a joint front with people in every state of this country. So we went into this thing completely unprepared.
Is it clear, Mr. Sridhar Sriram? Hope he has addressed. Because
but then again, I would feel that yes, we have woken up a little bit late, but in the best possible circumstances, we have done quite well. I still accept that no, adequate testing has not been done. Our per million cases per testing is really very inadequate, etc. But then, if you look at it, even US seem to be unprepared, and with so many cases coming up all over the place there, European countries are still having a tough time. Maybe they also did, wake up to the fact that there was a danger striking them, in the nick of time as such. But then, still, I would feel that we have still done better, except that, as Sir said, the government has to figure out what to do, and I hope they come up with a proper solution in the up the way third as such.
because please.
Actually, we are not sure as to how we are really doing. There are several factors which we need to consider. The first thing is that because of poor testing, we don't know how many cases there really are in the first place. And so a lot of cases in this country could very well go unnoticed. Let me give you an example. A lot of people have fallen sick for maybe just a day. It's like a mild flu, and this happened to my niece, and this happened to my brother, and this happened to his wife as well in New York City. My niece fell ill for just one day, and soon after that, brother and his wife fell ill just for a day, and that's it, it passed on. Okay, now, so it's not even reported as a case. They didn't even report it out there. So we don't even know. Now, as long as, even if they're asymptomatic, it doesn't mean that they're not passing on the infection. So the infection is moving. We don't know how many cases there are. And what happens is that it's the older people, it's the people with comorbidities who get thrown into the ICU, and those are the cases that really count. If at all they get thrown in there. I've heard of situations recently, a friend of mine, her mother was refused admission even though she tested positive in several hospitals in Bombay. Okay, the second factor is that in terms of the age demographic, that is favorable to us because a very small percentage is over 60 in India, and a large majority are under 90% are under 60 years of age. And so basically you have this passing cold for a day or two or something, and there'll be a few serious cases, and therefore the detection of this whole thing, how good it really is, I have doubts. And that is where I would say that if government were to be really scientific, then they need another body to verify the data that they have collected. And this is something which is very important to do, because it will improve understanding, and also it will generate public confidence in the government, and that's very important if government wants to take along people with them, because they cannot solve this problem without people's help.
Yes, Sridhar.
Yeah, got it. I think that sounds pretty reasonable, and there should be a body which is, a third party body or a neutral body which should be analyzing the data without any bias as such.
Because it's the health of people at risk. People are at risk. When they say nothing is more important than life, but how to tackle life issue? Shouldn't there be any body working in a transparent way and informing people and collecting data from people, increasing the confidence of the people to fight corona? Or simply lock down and keep them so that mentally they will become sick? Children are tired, old age people, they will not be able to, unfortunately if they land into any other pre-morbid state, it becomes very difficult to revive them because of the confusion which is prevailing for lack of proper information. So just stay put in, Sridhar, or just involve Professor Shabarinath. Yeah, Mr. Shabarinath.
Yes. So I think the discussion right now is about sample size of being tested or having not. If it is about the sample size, then I would like to begin an addition that the sample being, the number of samples being tested and the sample selection in India, I personally do not see it as adequate enough because, as rightly pointed out, you need massive testing to be done. Because without testing it wasn't properly, and even procedure for testing isn't the PCR testing, but it's a rapid testing that we've been doing. That also makes difference because of the antigen and the antibody. So proper testing and of course the proper selection of samples is a mandatory requirement. Now I think we'll move on to coming to the next question about is it really fair to go ahead with one more round of a lockdown and keeping everybody inside. Well, I'm pretty not sure about it, but I can definitely say locking down completely is definitely not a solution anymore, because we have kind of come up with close to 49 days of lockdown, which significantly goes close to with the John Hopkins University's recommendations of a 48-day continuous lockdown, close to that. And as per their reports, we are right now in a position, or we should have been in a position where we have flattened the curve, but because of a few other factors, we do have a little bit of community transmissions happening, which of course, we have not actually, on a authorized level, but I think we do have a little bit of community transmissions, at least pockets.
just hold the line. As you rightly said, see, we could arrest the import of the virus. We have put down all international flights. No more flights from India to, or from abroad to India. So that is the first we could do it. Then subsequently even interstate travels have been totally shut down. And even in the state, the migration from one place to other, that is also curtailed. And then this lockdown, which is being extended. Where do you think we still do not have confidence in the way we are moving ahead? Where do you think we are still going wrong or have gone wrong?
Yeah, this is a very tricky question, not just for the government but for everybody, not just in India but in many similar countries. That includes Pakistan and Bangladesh and so on, which is where is the balance between how many to let die because of corona, how many to let die because of hunger and malnutrition and so on. And this will be debated, I think, for a long while, but I would certainly provide a certain opinion on this in just half a minute. I come back to the point that your strategy cannot be up in the air. Strategy has to be based on solid data, and it has to be based on an understanding of transmission dynamics. Now, the coronavirus is a multi-point hazard. The receptor, which is a human, is a multi-point receptor. That's both are everywhere. It makes the whole problem so much more complex to solve, right? And the pathway again is a complex pathway. It's not a straightforward pathway like, for example, between a volcano and the people it impacts. It's not a linear pathway.
Right.
Okay. So that is why is it transmitting human to human at what and what kind of places? Is it transmitting through surfaces? What percentage is the transmission? And that information and understanding has to be India specific, and not just India specific. It will have to be literally state specific, because India is a huge country.
Right.
And conditions in Manipur are quite different from, for example, conditions in West Bengal.
Right.
And this is a question which I am repeating because government is neither asking this question nor is answering this question. And if it doesn't, then quite obviously the entire strategy, whether it is a suppression strategy or a mitigation or a combination of the two, is nothing but being pulled out of your hat. It has no logic. It has no science to it.
Flying blind.
It's you're flying blind. Okay.
Yeah.
So, we don't wait for the transmission dynamic studies to do it, the whole thing. There are two extremely important good cases that we have in India, and one is Kerala and the other is Bhilwara. Okay. Kerala started very early,
right,
like how the Minister for Health said, Madam Shailaja,
right,
because of their understanding of the Nipah virus,
right,
and did all that WHO puts in its guidebook,
right,
which is test, which is track and treat.
right.
That's what they did. Now, friends of mine in Kerala have even told me, I won't go into all the details of contact tracing and all that stuff,
right,
but I heard some very interesting stories from some of my friends in Kerala.
Right.
That is, in the early days, they even chalked out the path for a case that they catch to the hospital in such a way that that person doesn't come into contact with too many people, so that the spread gets minimized. That's the degree of detail that they went into.
Wonderful.
So you start early and you follow a very rigorous regime of testing and surveillance and so on. Here is a model for an entire state. Bhilwara, suddenly there were a lot of cases on 19th of March, and they planned the whole thing thoroughly. They took over hospitals, they took over guest houses, and they locked down the whole place, provided food at the doorstep, and they contained it within a matter of 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
So I would suggest that what we do is we open up. Otherwise, on the other side, with the supply chain being broken, you're pretty soon going to start seeing hunger deaths and malnutrition and all these kind of things. And these are horror stories which I'm already beginning to hear. Some of these stories from different parts of the country. And open it up, and wherever you have a hotspot, lock it down immediately. So a combination of what one calls a mitigation strategy and a local suppression strategy is what I feel is what is going to work for this country.
Sridhar. Sridhar.
Yes, Dr. Shiva.
Yeah.
What Sir says is absolutely right. Because after May 3rd, when the lockdown was, being lifted, there should be a local containment. That's one thing. As he says, test, track, and treat, which Kerala has been following, seems to be a good strategy to follow.
Right.
Third, I feel the government should be much more transparent with their data, and again, the percentage of data which comes in from surface contamination and from person to person spreading is
Right.
still not known out here. So probably that data is something that needs to be, coming in as soon as possible, or the government should be quite transparent about this.
Right.
Other thing is, as I emphasized, the testing both per million should be increased. That's one thing. The testing strategy has to be also sort of be standardized.
Right.
Because who comes up with quite a lot of procedures.
Right.
In fact, they came up with a testing procedure which says 5 people have to be tested, and if one of them is negative, then the other 4 are also considered to be negative. That is one of the strategy we guided, and one of the WHO guidelines.
Right.
I'm not sure how that works. Probably yes, the parameters for the attribute for testing is also sort of given that there is less than 2% of the population who has that virus.
Right.
And similar demographic patterns. So these are things that are there, but then I'm still not sure whether all these testing parameters and guidelines have been totally standardized, and they come up with proper testing guideline.
Yeah.
That's the third thing I look at.
Right.
Third thing, after the May 3rd lockdown, I'm not sure as to how the lockdown is going to be sort of enforced partially. Maybe some parts of the population may work and the other parts may remain at home and still keep working from home. Probably that is something that the government still needs to come out very soon and tell us the strategy, because I'm not sure, if they do that at the last moment, there would be panic again.
Right.
Which is what has been happening in the past 2 times.
Right.
In fact, I see a lot of this panic buying being happening. Tamil Nadu has announced lockdown, a very strict lockdown from 26th to the 29th.
Right.
And in one of the photographs I saw on WhatsApp, just nearby my house in that market area, the government market, there's a huge crowd there. Absolutely no social distancing, nothing at all.
Right.
And people have been just walking to it to buy vegetables and other provisions.
Right.
So again, that is another danger of infection spreading. So
Panic buying. Panic buying resulting in not following physical distance.
Absolutely.
Right.
And more infections coming.
So no strategy. You mean to say there
Absolutely. No
governments have
strategy.
no strategy and people are panicking. Right.
People are panicking. There's just 4 days of lockdown and strict lockdown,
Right.
and people are panicked.
Right.
So after May 3rd, so probably the government should announce what measures it's taking to remove the lockdown, and what are the strategies that are coming in after the lockdown.
Right.
With sufficient preparation for the the population to come up with, so that they can be prepared.
Done.
It should not be announced at the last moment saying this is what is going to happen.
Right. Well said. Right. Well said. So bye Sridhar.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Dr.
thank you.
Shiva, and thank you.
Right. Yeah, Professor Shabari, your last comments.
Yes, I do agree on those points, but we have to as well see, places where social distancing has been implemented on a very strict basis, because panic buying has been happening for quite some time now, but it was not necessary.
Yeah.
But I think if the local self-governance can, make it proper measures and properly kind of spread the message to people,
Yeah.
that it is not necessary because we don't have adequate supply.
Right.
And a little bit of additional support from the local self-governance, maybe with the help of volunteers, to home deliver, staples.
Yeah.
So that has been happening in certain parts of the country. And even ration shops where they go ahead and mark out 1 meter distances so that people can stand out streets apart and
Right.
get their supplies.
Right.
There needs to be a total lockdown in certain areas, then actually the local self-governance also needs to have some strategies in place where they can make sure that mental supplies and food is being moved and the panic and the loss of social distancing because of the strict enforcement of lockdown and restricting area can be overcome.
Right.
It has to happen.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Professor Shabarina.
Thank you, Doctor.
So you have seen, Mr. Sagar. They both are clear. Kerala is clear, Tamil Nadu is clear. Until and unless you have a transparent transmission dynamics in accordance a strategy with both together in place, people to be well informed. If that is not happening, people are panicking.
Yes. I think when I look back at the several what I call grey rhino events, which means that it gives you enough warning, it's going to be a big event if you allow it to happen. You can actually reduce its impact, but we don't. Okay? I go back all the way, I'm not going to go back all the way to the Spanish flu.
Right.
I go back, say up to the Bhopal gas tragedy. If you look at the Bhopal gas tragedy, if you look at the Ersama cyclone,
Right.
if you look at the tsunami that happened in 2004,
Right.
if you look at the Bhuj earthquake that happened in 2001, if you look at the Kedarnath cloudburst, the
Right.
Chennai floods, the Bombay floods,
Right.
except for the Machilipatnam flood,
Right.
where they evacuated 2 lakh people from the coast
Right.
and saved 2 lakh people.
Right.
There is, and that too because in the previous cyclone, the Andhra lost 10,000 people. They learnt a lesson from there.
Right.
Okay, but Orissa did not learn because the Ersama cyclone happened 9 years after the Machilipatnam cyclone, and Orissa lost 50,000 people in that super cyclone. So the next state did not learn.
Right.
Okay, now what I'm saying is that we do not have a very good track record of disaster management.
Right.
Okay, and that is something that we need to do, and therefore we need to have an integrated ministry for risk mitigation in this country.
Right.
And we need to increase our budget for 3 securities which should become fundamental rights in this country.
Right.
One is food and water security.
Right.
The second is basically environmental security.
Right.
Okay, and the third is health security.
Right.
And together, these 3 subjects get approximately 12% of the union government's budget.
Okay.
It should be up to 30%.
Right.
And a similar 30% allocation should be made in the state government and union territory budgets. Why do I say this?
Right.
Because government's fundamental job, the most important job, is to look after its citizens.
Right.
So it must give priority to looking after its citizens first. So these 3 securities must become fundamental rights for people and fundamental duty for the governments,
Right.
both central as well as state governments. And obviously, the budget should be increased.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
And this is the direction it should go, and not really give an overarching emphasis to what it has done till now, which is basically give importance for businesses to make profit.
Right.
So that must, that outlook,
1% community is taking away the major
Yeah.
chunk of welfare and developmental aspects.
that outlook must change.
Right. People at risk, so they need to be taken care of in a much better way, as you said, water and food, environment, subsequently public health care.
Yes.
So in times of disaster, just for the simple reason that you don't have a public health care in place
Yeah.
in the cities, urban or in the districts,
Yeah.
or for that matter in panchayat level, people are being locked down.
Absolutely.
It is as simple as that.
Yeah.
Before we wind up, how do you coin the term herd immunity? Because some channels, I think it's mind-boggling that without herd immunity, they said, what is herd immunity? And again, they're talking about vaccination, which really I'm unable to understand. One word will wind up.
Basically, it's the body's own defense mechanism which comes into play because it has fought the virus and created antibodies in the body, either because the body has fallen sick because of coronavirus or because of a vaccine. So herd immunity basically means that a large part of the population, maybe 50 to 60% of the population, has got the coronavirus
Right.
and developed an immunity.
Right. On themselves.
That is called herd immunity.
And the vaccination, how does it work? On which
well,
principle? Does it work on the antibody to generate antibody
Yes.
principle, or?
Yes, absolutely. Because what it does is it dumps down the virus, and
Right.
and then you are given a sort of a virus which is weak, a thing which is weak in your body, and the body develops antibodies, so that when the body actually comes into contact with the virus itself, it has sufficient wherewithal within it to fight off the virus.
Nothing but they generate antibodies so that it can prevent corona.
Yes.
And not only that, the WHO's again slipshod understanding of the issue. They say even after being cured, they are being reinfected. That means even vaccination also is in doubt now, as per latest WHO's.
Yeah, we don't know. So this is not just a problem of WHO, it's a problem I think for the whole world,
Yeah.
as to whether a person who has been infected once has developed antibodies,
Right.
will again catch the infection or not. If so, at what level will he catch the infection?
Right.
If so, it raises another further question, which is, will the
Right.
vaccines work?
So this is for today. Hope it is very clear that herd immunity is a must and quintessential if one has to overcome this pandemic, which was really endemic in Wuhan, became epidemic, and later on it spread to the world. It has become pandemic, and hope at least governments across the globe, and India in particular, both union and state governments, they have to come out with a clear publicized information in the public domain for the people to understand, because people are at risk. What is that you are doing and what is that you have done to cut down the transmission? The transmission dynamics as to why even till today 2000 cases in last 24 hours, in which way they are spreading, from whom to whom, this has to be very clearly made public so that people will understand, they will cooperate with you. This has been, we have been repeating, it's almost close to 1 month. They come and appear and they disappear, and they will again announce a lockdown. And health issue unfortunately is being turned into a law and order issue, with people being forced into their homes, losing much needed vitamin D. If they don't come out in the morning to fight a viral infection, you need vitamin D. A sun exposure is a minimum must. People are afraid to come out, or else they keep watching TV, sleep, wake up very late in the day. They miss it out on that, and they need vitamin C. If the bazaars, the markets are not in place, if they are not delivering with due diligence, they will be again malnutrition. Likewise, vitamin A. These are all most important to fight any infection. If these things or these groceries are not being made adequately available to the common public, it is going to be very difficult to fight. They are becoming, and they will become, sitting ducks to carry the infection further into further level. So at least governments now have to understand they should announce a strategy before May 3rd, because here in Telangana, our government has gone till May 7th. We do not understand. They say everything is under control. Now people keep asking them, if everything is under control, why this lockdown? Leave people, allow them with strict measures stating that physical distance is a must when you go out, and then wash your hands with normal soap or an alcohol based sanitizer, and never greet by hand, say namaste, adab or hello, but kindly keep people well informed as to what is that is really making you to pressure for another lockdown, or making people to be, asking people to be behind doors. Until and unless you do this, people are really suffering. The people are at risk, and you are making their risk into suffering mode, so that mentally they are becoming sick, nutritionally, malnutritionally they will become sick, and if they are not exposed to normal sun, if you don't allow children to play, then you understand the state of the public. Not only that, you shut down everything, no malls, no cinema theaters, and allow them at least to move from one place to other following all these protocols. So if you do this, people will be there with you. So people should be informed. Governments kindly come out and take the initiative and take people's mindset into consideration before you again plan another strategy. This is for
Shiva,
now.
one more point also. Sorry to interject.
Oh yeah, please read the Srima.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of vitamins.
Yeah.
Vitamin M also is necessary, the money.
Yeah, I was about to tell that. Yeah, go.
You have lakhs and lakhs of daily wage laborers who are dependent on their daily wage, for their sustenance. And unless they go out and work, they will not get the money for their sustenance. So that's something that the government also needs to take into cognizance.
Yes, Sriraman, even we journalists, we are not getting paid for months now. Even from where we are doing a show channels, they don't get government ads, they don't get private ads now. All that money is going to either CM or PM relief fund. We have to survive. If we have to bring out this to the public, even we need money. That is why we are trying to request or demand government as to you should take care of the needs of the people. As you rightly said, money is really more important now. Our CM demands helicopter money and all that, but that should be given to public. And we are at risk now, journalists and all these channels and people and all those who are working here, we are at risk. We have to come out and do these shows, but nothing is provided for us. Leave out money, not even PPEs. So at least now government will listen to all this. They will come out with a good strategy in the larger public interest, because people are at risk. See you with another discussion. This is Dr. Tangella Shivaprasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR saying bye.